All right, so are you ready to dive into a case that's going to make you question everything you thought you knew about justice and love and maybe even killer clowns?
Killer clowns.
We're
Yeah.
going deep into the murder of Marlene Warren.
Yeah.
Um, a case that seemed pretty open and shut at first, but then spiraled into this crazy web of intrigue for like decades.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
So, what makes this case so fascinating to you?
I think it's not just the bizarre circumstances, like you have a killer clown, you have a love triangle,
Right?
you've stolen cars, but
Uh,
also how it reflects like the changes in forensic science over time
yeah.
and also this just enduring power of human emotions, like
Yeah.
how badly people want closure
Totally.
and how grief can really impact people.
Yeah, and we'll be looking at all that today.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're mainly using a 48 hours episode about the case, but also some news clips and expert commentary.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you the full picture.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's rewind back to 1990 in Wellington, Florida. We meet Marlene Warren, a successful businesswoman just enjoying a casual Saturday morning breakfast
Mhm.
with her son Joe and some friends. It sounds really nice, right?
Yeah, totally idyllic.
But this perfect morning is shattered when a figure walks up to the front door, and it is like straight out of a nightmare.
It's a clown.
A clown.
And not just any clown.
Right.
This clown is carrying balloons
Hmm.
that say things like, "You're the greatest,"
Hmm.
and flowers. It's just this really bizarre mix of like celebratory and then this horrible event that's about to happen.
Yeah, you said it was jarring, and I can't even imagine.
Totally.
So what happened next?
So Joe, who was recovering from a broken leg at the time, he saw this clown approaching and just assumed it was like a get well gift.
Right.
Marlene opens the door,
Mhm.
and that's when things go really wrong.
Like, I can't even fathom being there and seeing that.
Yeah.
What was it like for Joe in those moments?
So later, Joe shared that he heard a loud bang and then he saw his mother fall to the floor.
Oh my gosh.
And then the clown just calmly walks back to their car, which was a white Chrysler LeBaron, and drives away.
Just like that.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the trauma of that.
Yeah.
You're a kid, you see a clown, your mom's at the door, then bam, she falls to the floor.
Right.
Total confusion, terror. And then the clown just drives away.
I mean, you can't blame him for struggling later with guilt,
Right.
and thinking like, could I have done something different?
Yeah. You always wonder if you could have stopped it.
Yeah. So, of course, with a case like this, the investigation immediately focuses on,
The people closest to her.
yeah, who are those people?
Well, immediately suspicion falls on her husband, Mike Warren.
Okay, and why was that?
Well, there were already rumors that he was having an affair.
Oh,
And Marlene had actually told her son and her mother that if anything ever happened to her, it would be Mike.
that is chilling.
Yeah. And I mean, it really does make you think.
Yeah. So did the investigation lead back to Mike?
It did in a way, but it wasn't that straightforward.
Okay, how so?
Well, Mike said that he was with friends and that they were all heading to a racetrack
Yeah.
at the time of the murder.
So he had an alibi.
He had an alibi.
Okay, so that complicates things. But you mentioned an affair, so tell me more about the other woman.
Yeah, her name was Sheila Keen, and she worked for Mike at his used car business, Bargain Motors.
Okay.
And they had a very public affair. Like, employees said they were very openly affectionate at work.
Really?
Yeah, to the point that some neighbors even thought that Sheila and Mike were married.
Wow, that's bold.
Yeah, especially given that he was married to someone else.
Right, and that this eventually happened.
Right.
So was Sheila someone who could have committed a crime like this?
Well, she worked as a repo woman,
Okay.
which, requires some toughness.
Yeah.
And she'd even mentioned to a coworker that she carried a gun because people are crazy,
Wow.
So that detail, along with her connection to Mike, obviously made her a person of interest very quickly.
Right. So we have a heartbroken husband with a potential motive and a tough-as-nails mistress who carries a gun.
Right.
Did investigators find any hard evidence linking either of them to the crime?
That's where things get a little tricky.
Okay.
So they never found the murder weapon,
Hmm.
and the clown costume completely disappeared.
Oh, wow.
But investigators did uncover some interesting pieces of the puzzle.
Okay, let's hear it. What did they find?
Witnesses described the getaway car as a white Chrysler LeBaron,
Right.
and this led investigators to an abandoned LeBaron
Okay.
with some interesting evidence inside.
What kind of evidence?
So inside the car, they found orange fibers that matched a clown wig
Okay.
and a single brown hair.
Interesting. And later on, two sales clerks came forward, one from a costume shop and one from a supermarket.
Right?
And they both said that they thought Sheila could be the person who bought a clown costume, flowers, and balloons in the days before the murder.
Yeah.
So we've got a potential suspect who was maybe seen buying clown stuff and a car linked to the crime scene with a hair that could be hers.
Right.
That seems like a strong case, right?
It does seem that way. But remember, this case wasn't just about a love triangle and a killer clown.
Right.
It also showed this dark side of their business dealings.
What do you mean?
So as investigators looked deeper, they uncovered widespread fraud at Mike Warren's used car business Bargain Motors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and remember that white LeBaron used in the murder?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out it was stolen from a competitor by one of Mike's employees.
Wow, that's a huge connection. So if they had enough evidence to convict Mike on fraud charges, why not for Marlene's murder?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even with all the suspicion, and even though he was convicted for the fraud, Mike was never charged with anything to do with Marlene's death.
Okay, so despite these dramatic discoveries, the case went cold.
It did.
What happened next?
Well, the case went cold for almost 30 years, which left Joe to deal with his grief and all these unanswered questions about his mother's murder.
Yeah.
But just when it seemed like they would never find the killer clown, a breakthrough in DNA technology happened, and it reignited the whole investigation.
I bet that gave everyone involved a shock.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened when they looked at the evidence again?
Well, remember that single brown hair they found in the abandoned LeBaron?
Yeah.
Well, with the new DNA testing, they were finally able to get a match.
Okay, and who did it match?
It pointed directly to Sheila Keen.
Wow. So after all those years, it seemed like they finally had their culprit.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But get ready because there's another twist coming, and it is shocking.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
When investigators tracked Sheila down, they found out that she and Mike Warren were now married.
What?
Yeah.
They ended up together after all this time.
They did. They were living in Tennessee under assumed names and running a restaurant called the Purple Cow.
This is insane.
It's a wild story.
That's straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
So what happened when investigators confronted Sheila with this new DNA evidence?
They went ahead and arrested her.
Okay.
And her reaction was really chilling. As officers were taking her away, she pointed at Mike and asked, "What are you going to arrest him for?"
Whoa.
It's a very suspicious thing to say.
It really is. So what did Mike have to say about all of this?
When reporters went to Mike's home, he denied any involvement.
Okay.
But he refused to answer any questions about Sheila's arrest.
Very suspicious. So the big question is, did Sheila act alone out of love or greed, hoping to be with Mike and maybe benefit from Marlene's money?
Well, that was definitely what the prosecution thought, but is that the whole story? Well, that's where things take another turn.
Okay.
Sheila's defense attorney, Greg Rosenfeld, he comes in with this really strong belief that she's innocent.
Okay.
And he argues that the murder wasn't some crime of passion by a scorned lover, but like a carefully planned hit by a professional.
So he's saying this wasn't about love or jealousy.
Right, exactly.
But like a cold and calculated assassination.
Exactly.
Okay, what led him to that conclusion?
Well, he pointed to just how methodical the whole crime was.
Hmm.
The clown was calm. The disguise was good. They got away clean.
Right.
It all points to someone who knows what they're doing, not some amateur like Sheila.
Okay, that's an interesting take. But what about the DNA evidence?
Yeah.
I mean, the hair in the LeBaron was a match to Sheila.
Right.
That seems hard to argue with.
Yeah, so the prosecution presented this hair as like the smoking gun.
Uh,
But Rosenfeld argues that the DNA tech back then wasn't that precise.
okay.
He said the match could belong to 4% of the Caucasian population.
Okay.
And guess what?
What?
Marlene Warren herself was part of that 4%.
Wait, you're telling me the hair that supposedly linked Sheila to the getaway car could have belonged to the victim?
It's possible.
Wow, that seems like a pretty big flaw in the prosecution's case.
It was a big point of contention for sure.
Yeah.
Rosenfeld also had another explanation for how Sheila's hair got in the car.
Okay. What's that?
Cross-contamination. Remember, the LeBaron was stored at Bargain Motors where Sheila worked.
Right.
So he's saying it's totally possible her hair got in there before the murder even happened.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the DNA evidence maybe isn't as solid as it seemed at first.
Right.
But what about the witnesses who saw Sheila buying the clown costume and stuff?
So Rosenfeld didn't deny she bought that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but he said that was a distraction.
Okay.
He said those orange fibers they found in the car were synthetic.
Yeah.
So they could have come from anywhere, not just a clown wig.
Right, like a Halloween costume or something.
Exactly.
And remember those pictures we saw of the evidence bags?
Oh, yeah.
With, like, holes in them?
Yeah.
That made me question the whole investigation.
Right. And Rosenfeld used those mishandled evidence bags to try to weaken the prosecution's case even more.
Yeah.
He said that potential contamination throws doubt on the whole thing.
Mm.
So years go by, trial dates are set, then delayed.
Right.
The chain of custody for some evidence gets messed up.
That must have been so frustrating for Joe and Marlene's family.
Oh, definitely.
To be waiting for justice for so long and then have all these delays.
Yeah, it was a tough time for them, for sure.
And then just 2 weeks before the trial, something totally unexpected happens.
Mm-hmm.
They reach a plea deal.
A plea deal.
So after years of saying she's innocent, Sheila agrees to a plea deal.
Yeah.
Why would she do that if she really didn't do it?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she pleads guilty to second-degree murder and gets sentenced to 12 years in prison.
Wow.
Her attorney still insisted she was innocent.
Okay.
He said she took the deal to avoid the risk of life in prison.
It makes you wonder, though.
It does.
Did that plea deal bring any sense of closure to Marlene's family?
It's hard to say. Joe Marlene's son, he had mixed feelings.
Yeah.
He said he was tired of waiting and just wanted it to be over.
Right.
But he also said, I believe she did it, but I don't know if she acted alone.
That's a powerful statement.
It is.
Even with the conviction, there's still so many unanswered questions.
Right.
What happened to Mike Warren?
Yeah.
Did he face any consequences for his part in all of this?
Nope. Mike Warren walked free.
Wow.
He released a statement saying his wife was innocent.
Really?
Yeah, and he stuck to that story the whole time.
It's such a strange and unsatisfying ending to a case that captivated people for decades.
It really is.
And it leaves us with a huge question.
What's that?
Did Sheila act alone, driven by love or greed? Or was she a pawn in some bigger scheme planned by Mike?
Right. Was Mike the mastermind behind it all?
Did he use Sheila to get rid of Marlene so he could be free and keep all the money?
Yeah. Or was he completely innocent, like she said?
Was he just caught up in this horrible situation?
It's hard to know for sure.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder if we're only seeing like the tip of the iceberg, you know?
Right.
We start with this killer clown, which seems straightforward.
Yeah.
But as we go deeper, it's clear that there are so many layers and unanswered questions and just gray areas.
Yeah, it's definitely not black and white.
And I think that's what makes this case so interesting even after all these years.
I agree.
It's a reminder that truth and justice aren't always simple. Sometimes the best we can hope for is a resolution that brings some peace,
Yeah.
even if we still have doubts.
Exactly.
This is definitely a case that sticks with you.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the secrets people keep,
Right.
the things they'll do for love, and how those choices can have devastating consequences.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting to me is how this case shows us the human side of the justice system.
Oh, how so?
Well, you have Joe, the son, who had to deal with seeing his mother murdered
Yeah.
and then trying to find closure for years.
Right.
And you have Sheila insisting she's innocent, but taking a plea deal,
Right.
maybe to protect herself or someone else. And then there's Mike, always in the background.
Yeah.
His real role in all of this is still a mystery.
It really is. It's like we're looking at this tapestry, but there are threads missing.
That's a great way to put it.
We see the big picture, but some details are hidden.
Yeah.
And we have to fill in those gaps ourselves.
And I think that's what makes true crime so captivating.
Totally.
It lets us be detectives, you know?
Yeah.
We can analyze the evidence, think about the motives.
Right.
Wrestle with the moral questions.
Exactly. So to everyone listening, we've given you the facts, the theories, the different points of view. Now it's your turn to decide.
Yeah. What do you think?
Was Sheila Keen a cold-blooded killer driven by love and money?
Or was she a pawn in a bigger game?
Did Mike Warren plan the whole thing?
Did he use Sheila to get rid of Marlene and get her money?
Or was he truly innocent, like he said?
Yeah. Was he just caught in the wrong place at the wrong time?
We've uncovered a lot in this deep dive.
Yeah.
But in the end, the answer is still out there.
It is.
What do you think happened?
We'd love to hear your theories.
And to help you dig deeper, we'll include links to the 48 Hours episode.
Right. And some articles and resources about the case.
So you can check out the evidence, see the different sides of the story,
Right.
and come to your own conclusions.
Exactly.
The Killer Clown case reminds us that even with the conviction, the search for truth can go on and on.
Yeah.
It makes us rethink our ideas about justice and love, and how far people will go to keep their secrets.
It's a story that shows us the dark side of human nature.
Yeah, and how even seemingly normal lives can have these dark possibilities.
Oh!
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey into the heart of a mystery that still fascinates and confuses us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Stay curious, everyone, and don't forget to be skeptical.
Right.
Until next time, remember, truth can be stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.